Hello BookTube! This is Breckie from Breckie Writes, this is Breckie Reads, and this is my spoiler-free review of Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Yes, I have finally read Crooked Kingdom. It is the second half of the duology that began with Six of Crows and is set in the same world as the Grisha. And those of you who followed me last year know that the Grisha trilogy and Six of Crows were my favorite series and book of all of last year, and this is the satisfying conclusion. Now, this is a spoiler-free review of this book, but if you haven't read Six of Crows, then there'll be spoilers for what happens in Six of Crows. If you haven't read Six of Crows, don't watch this video, go read it first, and then come back. You can check out my Six of Crows spoiler-free review down below. And then once you finish that, you can check out this because, yeah, I won't spoil you for this, but I will spoil you for that because it's a duology. But Crooked Kingdom picks up a few days after the events of Six of Crows. And Nej has been taken by Jan van Eyck. They have been betrayed in their deals and their schemings. Nina is still kind of coming off of her addiction to parem and the fallout of what it did to her body, and they are scheming to get Inej back. This really picks up from their, daring rescue for Inej and their decision to focus all of their energy on getting back at Jan van Eyck. Now, this isn't a heist story like the first book. It definitely has some of those elements though, and it definitely continues those wonderful schemes and plot twists that Kaz Brekker is so known for. They continue up until the very end, and they're wonderful, and they're coming out of left field, and they're hard to anticipate how he's gonna weave all the pieces together, but they do, and they weave together seamlessly. This is the story, really, of the dregs deciding to get back at Jan van Eyck and for Kaz getting back at Pekka Rollins, but also you get to see more of the depth of the characters. The characters that we fell in love with in the first book, we get to go deeper with. We get to see more of what makes them love and what makes them hate, what motivates them. All those things that we were just beginning to peel back the layer on in the first book, we get to see much more here. There are so many moments of laughter, there are moments of tears, and of course there are waffles, in keeping with Six of Crows tradition. One of the other things I really liked about this book is that there are some familiar faces from the Grisha trilogy that make appearances in here. I won't tell you who, but you'll get to see a couple of folks from the Grisha trilogy. If you've read it, do come back in this one, which is a really nice tie-in to the greater series. I think that the Six of Crows Crooked Kingdom duology takes place like 3 or 4 years after the events of the Grisha trilogy, so within a few years of that. And I just loved bringing them in and tying it back to that first series. Even if you've never read the first series, it's not going to take away from this, but if you have read it, it just is an added layer that makes this so wonderful. Now, as most of you guys probably guessed, I gave Crooked Kingdom a 5 out of 5 stars. This is the best book I've read all year so far. I mean, it's January, but Six of Crows is my favorite book of last year. This may be my favorite book of this year. I just think that Leigh Bardugo's writing is the epitome of what YA fantasy can do, and really what YA can do. She pushes the limits. I mean, I read this book and it really rides the edge of being YA and being adult, with Nej's background as being sold into sex slavery and freeing herself from that and becoming, an assassin and secret gatherer, basically. Kaz Brekker's violent sort of rebirth and who he has become because of the total suffering that he experienced. Nina's work in The White Rose and Matthias's time spent in Hellgate. All of these elements and how they play out could easily become an adult novel, but she keeps it in the realm of YA, and I think it works. I think it works because instead of focusing on the suffering itself and becoming sort of torture porn, it shows that suffering is real and it happens to people who are good people and who try to make good choices, and you can come out of that. There's a really great scene in which Inej is thinking about whether or not her saints want her to be innocent or if they want her to be just, and she chooses to be just, and that innocence is not required to be faithful, and I think that that's a really profound insight. There are so many great profound moments sprinkled without feeling like you're being hit over the head with morality. It's just so good, and this was such a satisfying conclusion to the duology. I want tons and tons of stories of our characters after these events. I want to know what happens to them and what they do. I want to see more cons that get pulled, and I want to see them grow together. The characters that are in relationships with one another, I want to see them blossom and grow more. I just felt so attached to this story, and I think that it can be a challenge to do, especially since I did not reread Six of Crows for this. I just picked this up kind of blind, and even with with not having read the other one for, 8 months, I still was able to pick up these characters and feel connected to these characters, and I loved it. Now, usually in reviews, I try to tell you where there are things that I wasn't satisfied with and things that I would knock step off, and I think the only thing is that there's an emotional scene that is kind of short, and I wish it was longer. If you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. It's one of the scenes where you have a lot of feels, and I just wish it was a little bit more so I could have more feels and like more space to have my emotional catharsis. But aside from that, I'm completely satisfied with this book. I felt that the characters stayed in line with the characters that we were introduced to in the first book. I felt that the cons were even better than the first book. I felt that the stakes were high, and I felt the world was still round. We got to see more of Ketterdam. This takes place in Ketterdam, and so we got to see more of that world and that city that gave birth to these characters, to the dregs. I loved it. I loved it from beginning to end. I was satisfied with it. It was a 5-star read. If you are dragging your feet like I was dragging my feet, pick it up. You will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. So you guys, comment down below and let me know if you have read Crooked Kingdom and what you thought of it. And if you want to have a spoilery chat, contact me on Twitter. I will leave all my social media links down in the description bar. I loved this. I knew I was going to, and I knew it was gonna make me laugh and cry and feel things, and it did all of that, and I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade it. This was such a good read. Hope you guys are all doing well, and I will talk to you later. Bye!